I'm very happy that we're here. The day has come. I've been excited to talk to you about this topic. Hello, everyone. Nice to see everyone joining in. It's a doozy. So, as you have commentary for our listeners, questions, by all means, please put them in there. You know, they're always welcome. I'll try to read some as they come along, but I'm going to probably leave a lot for the end because we have so much we're going to get into in this conversation naturally. So today our topic is about stopping to be a people pleaser, to be real, and how to kind of get along when you don't get along with others. That's some food for thought, right? So before I get into this topic with Miss Athena, let me tell you a little bit about who she is in case if you've heard of her, you've never heard of her. And if you know her, I think you're going to get to know a little bit more about her brain today, which will be wonderful. So here we go. So described as bold like hot sauce and occasionally called the gay female Elvis. I love this. Athena is a Columbus, Ohio-based belly dancer and producer who's been performing professionally since 2008. She'll be teaching Art of the Belly, which is literally around the corner, has headlined for the Ohio Bellydance Festival and the Indiana Bazaar, and she regularly produces workshops and community-led events throughout Central Ohio. Athena is also the producer of Esal Roja. Forgive me if I do not pronounce it perfectly.
That was perfect. Don't worry.
I tried. A theatrical dance show and her love letter to Arabic music. She's known for her very inclusive, body positive teaching for sure, and her style and her love of live music. She's really deeply committed to the ongoing work of being a thoughtful visitor of this art form and to building community through curiosity, accountability, which we'll get into, and joy. So everyone, please welcome Athena. Very, very excited. And one more quick reminder, there's some people that are new with these podcasts and new listeners. So if you're like, what is Let's Talk Belly Dance? What in the world is this about? It's basically where we peel back the curtain and we talk about all the ish that happens behind the scenes in a really good way to give you a different perspective. So, Miss Athena, tell me a little bit about your background and what you bring to the conversation.
Yeah, so the first thing, and I always have to mention this, or my mom has a very strong piece of feedback I'll get every time, is my mom started dancing first. So my mom was the belly dancer, and then I started taking dance classes first. It's important to know because she will always claim she danced longer, and that's she'll always be like the claim to fame. But the thing that's really important in that is that so many people have seen me as a child, as a teenager, as a young adult, and now as a full adult that has who is a producer and is a kind of a leader in all of these spaces. So there's so many different versions of me that existed in this scene and has grown up in this scene too. So it's kind of I've had so many different experiences, especially coming from being a literal child in this scene, that makes it a really interesting place. I think it's both really good because I got to be raised around so many powerful people. I always joke that because my first dance teacher was the ideal woman, she had bunion. And, I always thought the perfect foot had a bunion on it because that's what she showed us. Our feet were supposed to have bunions. I was like, that's what feet are supposed to look like. And it took me years to realize it wasn't supposed to be. So I think that was always very kind of funny. And I still that's how feet are supposed to look years later. But so that's a little bit. And then obviously you kind of grow up, you're like, oh, is this how I'm supposed to act, how I'm not supposed to? And so there's so many different versions of me that still exist in people's mind too. And so you kind of get to is this how I'm supposed to be? So I don't know, kind of an interesting place for me as a leader and as a community member in this scene too.
Yes, and growing up in it, you probably have experience where there's like the personal and then the business side versions within those versions. And I'm sure that also with relationships can be very interesting to navigate growing up and all the time.
100%. And people that, were the adults in that scene, now you have to be like, hey, you need to get me your music on time or I'm dropping you from the show. How do you start to be the bad guy in that situation?
But it's true. It's so, that could be, I love that. Okay. Tell me a little bit about you know, because you do events and all of that, as we're talking about your background, a lot of what I think about with this has to do with like being very intentional or having integrity. Authenticity comes to mind with this topic, you know, because we're thinking about, okay, be yourself. And along all these different versions, it's changing. But tell me a little bit about what you consider to be integrity and authenticity, let's say, just to like cap off this, and then we'll dig right in.
So I think I have a kind of two thoughts at the same time, and I'm a Gemini, so that's kind of very common for me. But so as a base place for me, I think we have to start with base dignity. Human beings deserve dignity. We deserve to be treated equally. We need to be treated with respect. And respect deserves that, you know, maybe equitable treatment, some sort of, we deserve to be treated with respect in some way and kindness. That means that that's sort of the way we all deserve to be treated at the end of the day. Now, from that, that doesn't mean that we have to be treated, you know, that doesn't have to mean that everyone needs to be best friends at the end of the day either. That just means that we all deserve that type of treatment.
Yeah.
And I think as an industry, we're such a small industry too, compared to jazz and modern. And I also think we've been, and here's where we get to the second thought, we have been misadvertising ourselves a little bit. As an industry, we often advertise ourselves as a friendship or sisterhood. And I'll say, I don't like us advertising ourselves as sisterhood because I don't know everyone's pronouns. I don't know if everyone I'm teaching in a room is a woman necessarily. Just as a person, I don't know every person I'm teaching. But you can't guarantee that. I, as a teacher, sometimes the only way I know someone coming into a classroom is just they purchased my class. You as a student only know the other students in the class by the people who have also purchased that class, that workshop, that intensive, or they might have just passed an audition to have joined a troupe. You know, these are unequal relationships. You don't have, they're not your family. They're not your, the myriad of other odd phrases we use as an industry to describe people, you know, your group, your family. That's not how these things work. And so I think that's my other sometimes qualm we have. So we have to, as a community, and I think we can use better phrases like community, find this middle ground between besties, family, chosen family, and strangers or enemies or somewhere else in between. But where do we navigate that type of conversation too?
Yes. And so let's dig into it. So how do we deal when there's someone you don't like in the community? You know, like, what does this mean to you? Like, so people can get your perspective and like your brain, what this means for Athena.
So as we go to like, I think I can give one example. So let's say there's a person that I'm not like, I'm pretty self-aware, at least after a decade of therapy. I have at least enough general self-awareness that I know I'm a loud person, for example. I'm a pretty loud, gregarious, I'm a joker. I know who I am and how I move through this world. There's going to be people that I just, personality-wise, am not going to be best friends with. You know, that's just how we exist in this world. And I can think of some dancers that just, personality-wise, we don't vibe. And that's okay. I think it can be normal to just, and there was an example of this dancer, and I'm not going to name their name because of course it doesn't matter. But, you know, I took their more standoffish personality type as kind of shadiness. I kind of took it as like, oh, you don't like me. I'm taking this a certain kind of way. And so what I had to do is to take the second and kind of take back. It's like, they're not saying anything by how they're acting. They're not acting any way towards me. I just don't, their personality and my personality don't interact as well. And I have enough self-awareness to say, okay, we're not going to be besties at the end of this. But I also know that that's not a failure of them, and it's not a failure of myself that our personalities don't match. And I also, and here's where I had to really kind of do a little bit of a personal call out to myself, is I have to respect this art form enough to say, what are they excellent at? And if I have a student or a client or a gig opportunity they would be a better person for, I'm still going to refer them.
Yeah.
And that's where I need to hold myself accountable. Just because we don't personally, you know,
vibe.
we don't vibe. That's it. They're not bad. loud and they are not. Like there's no moral failing. And so I have sent people that are a better fit because not everyone's going to get along with the loud belly dance teacher. Like that's fine. You know, some people are going to do better with a more like reserved kind of personality.
Sure. Yeah.
They do better at some styles of this dance form. There are better fits. Then I'm going to prefer that because my integrity as a person also requires that I'm going to hold this art form higher than my personal personalities, you know?
Yeah, that's very self-aware for sure. It's like you're reacting, or people can react, but without thinking a little deeper. Am I reacting to something at what level of depth? Like there's something like, okay, maybe it's just the vibe or the energy that day, or maybe it's just the in general. And then there's deeper things. Is it like our communication styles, like you're saying, maybe that also could not match, or maybe we don't align on something much deeper, which is right. And then that's a whole other scenario. That's, I think, awareness, like you kind of put that one in the head. I think that's a big part of where communication begins a lot of times without even thinking about it.
Yeah. There's this phrase that sometimes gets used when you're talking about community that is, if community is all people you personally get along with, it's a social circle, it's not community.
1000, yes. Yes, 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 yes. I love that.
And we have to learn how to balance those kind of complicated and nuanced relationships.
Tell me more. Yes, tell me more about this. This to me is like, that's the juice. We're starting to squeeze the lemon. The social circle, yeah, it's so easy to do it nowadays. Especially you can see even algorithmically things that are non-human doing this, and people kind of without thinking subliminally falling into it. So talk to me about this concept a little more.
Of like the difference of like, can you rephrase that for me just a little
Community
bit more?
versus social circle. I think this needs to be like big.
Well, I think it's so easy for us to like always opt in to the people who are exactly like us. And it can be really easy because I think we always want to be people who like reflect the same beliefs and personality types. Now, I do want to like put a little bit of a small boundary around us that like, especially marginalized communities do need to make the spaces that are best and safest for themselves. You don't have to put the effort forth if you're a marginalized person to like do a bunch of emotional labor you aren't in the space for, you know, obviously. But I think we can always, you know, I'm definitely the person that if I see something that's a little outside of my normal, what I see or what I'm normally used to, I'm going to go right into their messenger and have that conversation. You know, I definitely learned a lot during COVID. We were all having those fights on our Facebook walls, like all going out for each other. And I realized that we weren't really being collaborative and we were all just creating these echo chambers that I think really hurt us as a community. And I can tell you personally, there's at least one dancer I owe an apology for. And I still like deeply regret for the way that I hurt that person because I did not, and I still take accountability for that. I messaged her to apologize because I felt like I hurt her. I felt like in COVID, I do have to take some accountability in that because we were creating these insular circles where we were not like actually reaching out and having those conversations. We were just the algorithms and we were talking to each other. And so there's at least one dancer that I did reach out and apologize for the way that I was talking to them. Like I felt like that was a real situation that I needed to take accountability for the way that I was acting.
Shows so much emotional maturity, which is very difficult. Awareness, emotional maturity.
We can thank Debbie. She's my therapist. But and that's like a space that I really have to, I take that ownership and I still will to this day because no one deserves to be in public like no one deserves that, of course.
Yeah, I have a lot of issues with that. I felt like it started really heavily in COVID, and it's continuing now with people choosing sides and how things should be done in a minutia level. And if it's not done at the minutia level exactly what others would like, it's problematic. So I'm hoping that this trend will calm down. Because it is a community. You don't have to like each other, but you do need to have some sort of form of respect, for sure, at the end of the day.
Yeah, there was a situation, and this was a recent one, where there was a dancer who had a very similar, I thought, way of working. And she, the way there was a situation in a community space that I thought we were going to align. And so they reached out to me via DM, and I was like, hey, can we have a phone call? Because there's a joking way that I always say I call people. Like I do, I'm a phone caller. I could sit in my house and and I know you can tell I'm a millennial because I do make the phone call like this and not like this. But so we ended up having, after a kind of a contentious community situation, about an hour-long phone call. And we ended up still disagreeing at the end. But I understood their perspective. I understood exactly where they came from. And what I learned out of that is I wanted to run my trip in a different way than they ran theirs. But we understood each other's perspective, and I still have a lot of respect for how they choose to run their group. It's just different, and that's not bad, and that's not morally reprehensible. We do things differently. It's just, I disagree. That's it.
I know. If only it was that simple. I had a recent call with, and then turned into an in-person sit-down with someone, and again, you can disagree, but sometimes some people don't take it that easy, and they'll go, "Oh, it's not. You didn't come to my side, or you didn't fully agree with everything I wanted in that conversation," and it's just not good. Like they're still in their head, mad and angry at the world, and I just go, "Okay, you understand their shoes, you hear their perspective, they hear yours. You're not. The idea that you should persuade someone completely to the side is not going to be the win. Sometimes it should just be listening to each other, respecting each other, and saying, okay, we don't agree here, but they're still a good human." You know, simple things like this happen often, which is why I try to mention these little things in between.
Yeah, and there's some things I'm going to be that I'm pretty very strong minded on, and then there's some things that are going to be permeable. But there's a lot of things that I think are once I can hear their perspective, at least I understand what it is, and I can be like,
Yeah.
okay, you do you, I do me.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, I can't change how you're going to do things because this is not in my sphere of authority or my sphere of control.
Yeah.
So I'm just not going to spend the mental energy to deal with this, you know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Talk to me about tolerance with others that you may not get along with so easily.
Well,
Tolerance.
I think, there's times in your life where there's been real emotional harm. And I think that's where it gets a little different because there's been times where I have been, frankly, kind of like really, hurt. And I don't have a better way of saying that. There was a situation where people I thought were frankly, my best friends. I thought they were going to be my bridesmaids at my wedding. I was kind of like their bridesmaid in one of their weddings.
Oh, wow.
And after that, we had a pretty serious falling out. After me kind of expressing the pain of me saying I was going to be invited, because at that point, I'm a gigging dancer. That means that I'm very rarely available on weekends. And so I had carved out this time saying, I'm going to make it available to me to spend one weekend with you, one time, like, please, and there was like, oh, I'm not available, I can't do it. They had planned an event the exact weekend I'd carved out to not invite me.
Oh, ouch.
And I found it out because they had created a group chat without me and then accidentally posted about it in the group chat with me. So it was just full on mean girls, like really petty high school stuff. Like it was pretty, yeah, it really hurt. And so my response was like, hey, I'm pretty devastated. Like, frankly, after years of me trying, I'm not doing great with this. For me to like move forward with you as a friend, I'm going to need to see you in person. I'm going to need to talk with you. Like, I'm not going to be cool with texting, and I'll tell you, this was 5-6 years ago. And like to this day, I still have a little bit of like a heated response. Like, this is not my favorite thing to talk about. It's like, but still, it's like, for repair, this is what's going to be necessary. And
Sounds reasonable.
they're
Reasonable.
like, I'll talk to you after work later today. You're totally important to me. I'll text you back after work.
Okay.
That was 6 years ago.
Ouch.
And so that didn't happen, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And so that didn't happen, but they've continued to come to events. They've continued to come, they've continued, and I can't do anything about that.
Yeah.
That's outside of like my sphere of influence. And here's the thing. My request was for repair. My request was, we're not friends until you made this one to talk to me in person.
Yeah.
You did it. So we're not friends. So I'm not going to talk to you. And so I've seen them multiple times.
The door has been open, but no one wants.
We're good. We're good. Yeah. We're good. I don't need to talk to you. And that's gonna be fine, because we're deserving of respect, and the respect, and like I said, we're deserving of human dignity and human respect. And what that means for me is that I'm not going to speak badly of them in public. Mm-hmm. Now, what I'm going to say is, they did this because you did it. Like, if you didn't want to be talked about, don't do it. But I am going to not say that they're a bad dancer for this behavior. I'm not going to say they're a bad teacher. I'm not going to say they're a bad any of those things. They're a bad friend to me. Mm-hmm. But that's going to be it, because I think that's going to be the boundaries and the level that I'm willing to talk about. And so when I say tolerance, this is, I'm going to be able to have those intersecting conversations, that both of those things can be true at the same time for me. And they're obviously, like, if they apply to perform at one of my events, they'll be treated with the same respect as any other person. Mm-hmm. I doubt it, because that would be audacious. That would be a wildly audacious thing, but I would love for them to try. Please do. I won't say your name, but if you're watching, please apply. But like, if they ever wanted to have that conversation, I would. But I think, actually, you know what? They did vague post about me on Facebook, because I had a lot of people send screenshots about it. But so it was like, but I think at the end of the day, like, I'm comfortable about that, because that's still me moving in my integrity. Yeah. And so I'm not going to, like, say this person is unsafe or this person is dangerous. I'm going to say that that's just my experience, and that's it. They're not a bad person, not a bad dancer. That's it.
Talk to me a little bit about unsafe.
Yeah, so I think I was trying to adjust my lighting, and I think I made that maybe worse. So ooh, now I'm brighter than usual.
You look great.
I'm more pale now. So I think that this really, sometimes I think, and I'm thinking we're getting out of it as a trend, but sometimes there's, we used to call it a weaponized therapy language. But so we would use things like unsafe, or I need to create a boundary, or I need to protect my peace. But we were sometimes using therapy language to remove sometimes accountability. So this person is unsafe. And what that will do is it kind of creates, we're like, okay, well, that person is no longer allowed in our spaces. And I think what that does is we kind of remove accountability. And what I mean by that is not everything is unsafe. Sometimes we are sometimes just, let me figure out the best way of phrasing this.
Uncomfortable instead of unsafe?
Uncomfortable, yeah. So I think we're in a hyper-individualistic society. And what I mean by that is, like, a lot of times if someone says, if it doesn't feel good, I'm going to opt out. We're often just saying, like, I don't want to deal with it. It's uncomfortable for me.
Yeah.
But community requires a little bit of being uncomfortable. Because to have these conversations, to have these talks, I don't like having to have conversations about something that hurts me. I don't like having these. Like, this isn't my idea of a fun time, to have an hour-long conversation about how someone runs their, how someone else runs their group. Like, that's not my favorite thing to do. I don't like conflict. I'm sorry, some people do. I love that for them. But when we want to grow, when we want to become better as as a community overall, we have to face these things head on. And so there's a real line between someone
truly making a space more, less safe for the collective. Maybe someone who is not respecting boundaries in a dressing room. Someone who is, for example, so my shows, I don't allow selfies in the dressing room. Or someone who is using racially charged language or something else like that. Those are real boundaries that are inappropriate. Versus someone who makes, someone who is, maybe someone who communicates in a way that makes you uncomfortable. Because there's a lot of reasons that in the background you could have a conversation. So for example, one of my troop mates is neurodivergent and was removed from spaces as opposed to the producer actually having a conversation and calling that person in and saying, hey, the way that you're communicating makes people uncomfortable. Let's have that conversation. And so we removed this person from spaces as opposed to maybe having that conversation. So we kind of weaponized that and really removed someone that wasn't acceptable, to my perspective. Full disclosure, that's my opinion. Mm-hmm. And so I think we have to be really careful, because when we use these really loaded words, maybe we could have just said, hey, maybe that's maybe not the way to talk to someone, or maybe you got a little close to someone. Let's just maybe learn that the average person likes to be this far away from another person. We can have those and just start to make these things comfortable. Or, hey, the way you express your discomfort at a show is uncomfortable. Made someone else a little uncomfortable. May I offer you a fidget toy? These are all things that we can do to make, I'll tell you, I have a box of fidget toys for all of my shows.
You were telling me.
I love my fidget toys. I have fidget toys everywhere, but I offer fidget toys. I offer earplugs. These are things we can do to make these spaces better. But these are things that came because I got the feedback that someone else was removed from a space. I just don't vibe with that. I think we have to be really thoughtful with these really loaded languages. For me, as a producer, I really think it's essential that we practice these like restorative justice politics. If someone makes a mistake, have that conversation. Say, this was a thing that went against the rules of my show. How do we want to move forward so you can come back? How do we bring you back to our community? Because this world is too lonely to remove people. Now, are there spaces where this person has done something that is so outside that they should be removed? Yes, but there's very few situations where people should be left alone.
Very true. Most of it is surface level, or things that they're very repairable. Yeah. To your point, for sure. Yeah. A lot of times,
that's what I mean.
Assumptions and just not understanding and communicating.
Yeah. And so there's a difference between, as you go back to, there's things that are like, you don't vibe with someone, you don't like them, and there's a real difference of safety. And I think that's what and that's the nuance I think we're talking about. Yeah. I know you've had your own kind of, differences of opinions with people too.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Made a whole podcast out of it. It's very normal, and it's something that I think everyone who listens to this can probably say. Definitely, if they're here in any space long enough with a group of people, it happens. It happens from the time you're in school doing a group project. You're gonna be in group situation, and even if it's not a group, it's like your partner. How do you navigate, communicate, and talk about this? And these are the same type of skill sets. They're just applied a little bit different. Like they'll feel a little different when it's a community type of conversation in effect. So it's kind of ebbs and flows in that way. You mentioned in this country, I agree, the word individualism. Tell me a little bit more about thinking like the individual versus thinking more systemically, like in the community. I would love to hear more of your thoughts about maybe ways of modeling with others in this type of community environment. Like you mentioned, kindness. What are some things that come to mind?
Well, I think, so I'm a teacher, and so one thing is I'm often going to be speaking about my particular boundaries and my particular energy levels. Often a teacher, people expect us to be perfect. And, I'm often just the person who hired, rented a room and advertised classes, so people expect us to be perfect. And so having the conversation of I think I texted one of my students because they'd asked me for something. I was like, I'm about 2 minutes away from total burnout. Like, maybe not the day, maybe not the time for this.
I wish I would have done stuff like that when I was teaching before.
Like, I'm about 2 minutes away because, you know, I'm teaching at Art of the Belly. I'm bringing my group. Isa Little Walk is a very intensive show, just to give you, and I'm not trying to advertise my own show, but I will. It is 30 dancers, 7 choreographers, and 125-minute song. So I'm running the name of the conspiracy theory in my head right now. Like,
that is a lot.
Yeah. So it's a whole conspiracy. And then there's the rest of the show. So I'm just like, you know, just being fully open, honest, and transparent, not making my stress anyone else's emotional labor to manage, because I think sometimes teachers can make their stuff everyone else's problem, and it's not. I've definitely been in classrooms where the teacher's like, I'm sorry, everyone, I just had a bad day at my day job, and I just don't want to teach, and okay, like, that's not, like, they paid to be here, like, you know, you can't present that in your classroom. But, you know, just think, hey, I can't give anything more than what you paid for. I can't do any, you know, than the class that you paid for. But, you know, people expect us a certain level. People have expected this professionalism. So we have to make sure that we're modeling what we're expecting. But people sometimes expect us to be perfect, that we are some sort of ascended level or something. And I don't think we are. We're just sometimes people where this is a source of income. This is what we can do, but we don't have to be perfect. And so finding that level. I don't think I'm the ideal perfect teacher in this world, but I also will provide the sometimes 5 minutes away from burnout, but you're not going to get sad, you know, donkey when I have to work.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about, so you talked about a story, how it was more of like a surface level disagreement. I'm just going to call it like that. It was just like an energy level vibe.
Yeah.
Tell me, let's go maybe a level deeper. I would love to know if you have any stories where there was like an ethical disagreement, or maybe even like harm interaction with someone.
Yeah, I think if we go back to that, like, troop situation. So if we go into that, like, with more detail. So I felt like the way that teacher managed their troop, I did not vibe with, like, full disclosure. Okay. Because I felt like the way that teacher managed that kind of, like, escalated their students' distress. When I had that conversation with her, with them, I was like, I really felt like the way that you moved, when you were affirming that student's distress, you weren't saying, hey, you know, you were kind of making them more stressed because you were mad at the producer for what was going on. And so, like, yeah, it is really terrible that they're doing this. You know, it is really bad that they chose to allow this to happen. So it wasn't really affirming their distress. It was just amping up their anger.
Yeah, that will do that.
And so what it ended up doing is this student walked out of the show 5 minutes before their solo.
Oh, no.
And got in their car and drove home.
Oh,
no. And so the next day, the teacher reached out to me on Facebook and was like, yeah, it was really bad how they chose to move. And I was like, yeah, let me call you. Like, can I call? And so now, let me try to do my young person. I'll do my, you know, I was like, yeah, let's talk.
This is totally okay. I do this too.
But so when I did, and I was like, and they're like, no, I feel like this was the right way to move. And I was like, okay, if that's how you feel, that's how you're doing it. But that week, I did reach out to my troop, and I was like, hey, how can I, when you're distressed, how can I hold space for you? Because I still disagree with how they chose to move. You know, the full disclosure is I still disagree with how they chose to move, and that's their choice. Because that is outside of my locus of control. But I did go back to my students and say, hey, I came into this situation as a teacher. They were distressed. How can I, you know, what do you want from me as a troop leader to hold space for you in this? And so I'm going to use their example, something I did not like, and move forward. And so we made a plan up of what that looks like. For my troop, they're going to say, hey, you know, you're just going to, you know, call me, go outside. And then I'm going to do the set, and I'm going to go drive home, like, you know, but don't let me look like this in public, because that's how we want to move. And we have that follow up as part of our discussions before most shows. Okay. But But so I took that as an example for me to be a better leader, because I wouldn't have thought about maybe how to manage that, because I had not seen that in my experience as a troop manager before. I'll say that.
You're always learning.
Yeah.
There's always new, like in life, right?
Yeah.
Always new experiences with everything. You think you've been through it, and then another angle of it comes at you, but you're always learning, which is the good part if you use it to grow. You know?
Yeah. And so
I
I've been
mean,
stuck with degree.
yeah. You're from the teacher's perspective. I mean, what are some like I love this part, like mistakes. Let's talk about mistakes because we're freaking human. We've done dumb things. We were like, oh, so stupid, or like, oh man, I had no idea, or like, oh, that was just a bad decision. Like, we've all been there. What are some mistakes you've made along the way that maybe listeners could be like, oh shoot, I've done that too, or I never thought of that.
And like for me as like a teacher or as a troop director, the thing that I needed, I've really been, and the universe has been correcting me deeply recently, is that I should learn to like not align with people that I don't see doing the effort that I'm asking for them. So as an example, if I'm asking someone to invest in a very intensive piece of work, I need to see them doing that work already. Like,
The discipline, like a dance or production or something.
Yeah, and that's the thing I'm really kind of learning in myself, is that like if that's the expectation that I'm setting up, like I'm trying to start working on a lot more projects, a lot more effort, a lot more higher effort work. And I'm like, okay, that means that I need to, and I work a lot. Like I love a sweat. I think I've already rehearsed for 2 hours in my basement. I don't expect other people to do that. But so, because we all have different priorities, we all have different goals and what we need to get done. And if I put that type of pressure on other people, it's going to cause them unnecessary distress. And so I need to figure out what that looks like. So that's kind of the mistake I've been making, is I've been putting people on a level of stress because people think they have to do what I'm doing. And then it makes them really stressed out. And that's not ever my expectation, because I can't put people, like, I don't expect anyone to do as much as I do. It's just what I like to do. I like to be in my basement for 2 hours a day. You should not have to be expected to do that. So that's not anything about liking people or not, but that's just been kind of the space that I've been really thinking about recently.
Have you ever, or do you have any stories about where maybe you had like a gut feeling and you weren't sure if it was misalignment or harm? Like maybe you thought the person was the problem, but maybe it wasn't, it was something else, or vice versa.
Oh, let me think about that.
No worries.
I think a lot of times those come down to more of like very direct communication. I will say, and this was a few weeks ago, there was this dancer we had, they did something kind of funny with my intro, and it wasn't anything particularly bad, but they kind of ad-libbed my intro in kind of a weird way. And so as I got off stage, and we're not natural MCs. Like dancers, we are not really great MCs. Like, that's just not our skill set. Some people are incredible. I'll say that. I'm not an incredible MC. I read the introduction people give me, and then I say, welcome to the stage, this person, and then I go backstage. I mean, I don't know how you are as an MC. I'd love to see a video.
Same. I'm sure I'm not very good. I just get her done.
Yeah, like, I wish at some point I would love to hire someone to be an MC for this, like, because but they'd accidentally kind of did it funny, and then they made a joke that was a little off color as I got off stage. And so and you leave stage and you're in that endorphin, and you're like, oh, that's a very off color joke as I got off stage. And so you're just in this really bad space. And you're like, were you mad at me, or like, did I do a terrible job? And you're just really sensitive in that place, and it's not anyone's fault. It's just that. And so, and then, people start coming up after you like, oh, she made a really bad joke about you. Oh, she was And then
Yeah,
the
yeah.
other dancers start coming up to you like, oh, that was really bad. Oh, does she hate you? And you're like, I didn't think she hated me. And so at that point, and now I'm in my head, frankly. I was all stressed out. It's like, okay, you know what? I'm gonna go up to her and just have this conversation. Because I'm frankly, you might have noticed, a very direct lady. And so it's at the end of the show, and I approach her, and we just have this conversation, you know, to just clear this air. Because at this point now, and I start feeling everyone's eyes watching us too, like watching, like, oh, is she gonna have a fight? I was like, I'm not gonna have a fight. Like, what's happening here? Like, what's the reputation I have, apparently? Like, but, and so we just had the conversation. It's like, hey, that joke was a little off color, like royalty. That wasn't maybe the move. And she's like, oh yeah, I was really nervous. I'm sorry. You know, maybe I should never do that. I was like, it's fine. It's fine. And you know, we get interrupted several times. There was nothing in there. Because, you know, people were starting to think that she was bullying me. Like, people were really just starting to turn this little joke. Because people were like, she is such a bully. She is such this. It was wild how quickly it had gone from a 6-second joke to all of this stuff.
Drama.
Because belly dancers get bored. Like, you could go rehearse in your basement for 2 hours, and we could have an hour and a half conversation, apparently. But so I just dealt with it. And I was like, by the time at the end of the night, people the next day were messaging me. I was like, no, we talked. We're good. We're good.
Mm-hmm.
Like, was the conversation weird because she was stressed out because I directed, you know, I was being like, hey, that was weird. Yeah, it was a little funny, but it's done because anyone can ask me, oh, how did you feel? Oh, I talked with her. We're fine.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because then this is squashed. And then, you know, that's how I felt. So people could, now maybe for me, it's often miscommunication. We very rarely are good at talking to each other. We're very good at typing or hyper focusing on something else. You know, nothing, very rarely anything else in between.
Oh, yes, 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 yes. There's so many. I mean, that's always the ideal, like that situation where you guys just quickly nip it in the butt, talk about it, everyone's good, right? But
Yeah.
then there's times where you go directly to each other, you talk about it, and the other person isn't as understanding. I'm gonna keep going back and playing devil's advocate because I'm like,
No, yeah.
this is
And
the
then I fought her.
reality.
Then I went outside and I took off my earrings. No.
No. Gosh, you hope it doesn't get to that point
No,
ever,
we're never
but
gonna get to that point.
there's many times you'll go to the person, right? There's some people that never go to the person. But if you go to the person and they're like, no, this is how it is, and blah, 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 and then I think this of you, and blah, 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 and you're like, whoa, where did this even come from? Like, we need to, like, cool it down. And they're like, nope, I don't even want to talk about it. Sorry, made up my mind. Bye. And you're like, wow.
You know why I'm so opposed to that, though? And this is my opinion. Fully. Like, I need a not my opinion banner. It's because I saw this so much in my prior generation of dancers. So my first teacher tried to sue me. So full disclosure. So she tried to sue me for a non-compete I signed when I was 15.
Wow.
So when I was, and so this is why I'm probably very, and this is why you'll see I'm very, and I guess maybe I should have put this in our notes of like people trying to sue me. But so when I was very young, I was like 18 or 19, the gigging was my only source of income.
Mm-hmm.
And I had signed a non-compete when I was 15, which is incidentally in Ohio super illegal if it's your only source of income. But we don't need to worry about the law because I signed it when I was a literal child. But so she had me sign this non-compete, and so she tried to sue me because she saw I had done a show. And so she then, what she actually did was wrote on a piece of paper, which she then faxed to someone to then write me an email to say she was going to sue me. It was very complicated because she did not email herself. She had someone write an email from her email address because she, whatever, different era, different time. It was that time. But so they were all suing, like she tried to sue me for this, and then there were multiple dancers who were suing each other. One of them, like, successfully sued another. Like, they were all going for each other in the courts. And I was like, this is a wild, one over, like, a weird, a copyrighted move. There's a movement in my city that is an odd variation of a Hagala step. which is copyrighted, so you can't even use it. I mean, it's just a variation of a Haggadah you can learn in like 2 seconds, but whatever. That is patented. But so like I saw my prior generation destroy their community through never having this conversation, and I was really disappointed. And I just thought, like, this is silly. Like, at one point, I saw someone sue a woman with cancer. Like,
wow.
it was just like, y'all are kind of gross. Like, I'm sorry. That's not the kindest way of saying it, but I found it really distasteful. And so people have jokes like, oh, one day you'll do that. It's like, I won't, because this is not in alignment. One, I can't afford a lawyer. But two, like, this just doesn't make any sense to me. There's nothing in this world, like, you could undercut me for a show, like this $300 gig. I'm not going to destroy my community for that. I'm not going to destroy this for this. This is not going to be worth it for it. Like, this is not worth it. And so that's probably like, and I've been doing this since I was a child. Like, I saw this so formatively, these adults just destroying each other, destroying their families for nothing. So I'm sorry, I just like got on my soapbox for a second, but it made me so mad.
I think so much context on why you have a very like wise, and it's obviously been through a lot of learning, growth, and like watching like hell, like you can tell, the way you speak, and it's one of those things that I think gives a lot of context to why you think the way you do and where it comes from.
Yeah, but it's like, why are you going to sue someone over a knockoff Haggadah? Like, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, in our area, we had years ago dancers suing other dancers. I'm like, really? Like, how many can even afford a lawyer? Like, why are we suing each other over these silly things? Like, come on, people. Like, just talk to each other. This is ridiculous. And it was usually, I was a moderator for a group about rates. This had to do with people suing each other over contracts and rates. And so I was privy to conversations that, could never see, and they still can't see the light of day. But you realize that it's all people not communicating, making crazy assumptions. I'll keep repeating it every podcast.
Yeah.
And then a lot of anger and rage based off things that they would have just talked to each other and like really listened. It wouldn't get to that point. It didn't need to ever get to that point. But everyone's growing and learning, and we can be hot-headed when we're young, particularly.
Yeah. But like, even when, she was trying to sue me when I was 19. I could have been hot-headed then, but I was terrified because.
Peeing my pants. Freaking 19, someone's trying to sue me? Get the heck out.
I was living with like, in a boxcar at that point in time. I had nothing. Like, what are you going to sue me for?
That's wild. That's wild. Tell me a little bit about, my gosh, like I feel like this is going for hours because there's so many stories, and I'm like, we don't even have time. Like, I got so many juicy stories. Oh my God, but
20 years of gossip. Don't worry, I got it.
I'm sure people listening to this later are gonna be like, oh yeah, I could think of a few. Like, let's talk about maybe some solutions real quick. So if you're around, let's say someone you do not get along with, let's say they are someone that did cause harm in their community, what are some solutions to like help avoid such things or deal with such things? Because you're going to see them all the time around if you're in the community long enough, because it's a community. You are going to be around.
You're never going to escape them. No. So the first, so I think there's a few things. One, you need to practice your own self-care. Like, what does that mean for you? If you are not, and this is what I do. You can say whatever you want to, Ever can send me the emails later. But like, if you aren't feeding yourself, if you are not eating well, if you're not drinking enough water, if you aren't coming to these events like this, like, I think we're right now, as a community, sometimes we're like, I sleep for 3 hours before I go to a dance festival. I'm exhausted. Oh, I'm sure you're going to do super well when you're going to meet someone you don't enjoy when you're living off of Alani's, like that's going to go great. I'm an Alani person. I'm not a Monster drinker. So this is a self call out, just so you know. But like, if we're not in like a really good taking care of ourselves, like that's going to be the first thing we need to make sure that we're doing, is that our cup is personally full. Just because, and like, these festivals are personally overwhelming. So like, and I'm an introvert, so maybe I'm doing all this stuff ahead of time and all you extroverts are just super vibing. But like, You know, for me, I'm going to make sure, like, I'm going to Art of the Belly, and it's a huge festival, and it is overwhelming for me. And so I make sure that, like, my roommates are people I really personally like. I have books planned. I have my headphones packed. I have everything that I need to make sure that I'm set up for these types of things. I'm making sure that before I'm in any room with a bunch of people, doesn't matter for people I like or people I don't like, I have made sure that I am set up for my own personal success. And that's it, the people I like or people I don't like. But like, we need to make sure our cups are really full, because we deserve to come into spaces that we can focus on our work, because you have paid, these events are so expensive. They're like, these classes are like $150. I don't know how much money you make, but that's more than I make in an hour. And so like, you get an hour and a half, so it's like what, like $75? I don't know, I'm not doing the math right now. $100 an hour. I don't make $100 an hour. So like, you know, just thinking about, like, you have to make sure you're getting your money's worth. So that's my first thing. And that's not about liking people or not. It's literally about making sure you
I like that. Centering.
Okay. So that's the first thing. I'm sorry, that's just me. I'm going to get off my high horse now. Boop, boop, boop. Okay. So next is making the decisions that have you fall asleep at night well. So how are you moving in alignment? It does not have to be how someone else would do it. So you don't have to do what I do. Because I'm going to make choices that someone else might not agree with. So that could be, you know, not someone who has a different demeanor or a personality type may not choose to talk to that person 5 minutes after the weird thing happened. Someone else may not choose to do that, and that's okay. They don't have to be me. Like, so what do you feel like is in alignment with you and your own motions? So let's say this person is, you know, they're over here. I'm going to be over here. That's going to be good for me. Or, you know what? I don't care that they're sitting right there. I want to be closer to that teacher. Okay, then make the choices that are right for you. Because, you know, we have to make the choices that are best and safest for ourselves. Making sure that you have the support structures and the things in space for you. Okay? So that's going to be the first thing. So how can you move forward? And it's going to look different. The next thing is that you do not have to acknowledge and be best friends with every person in the room. You know, I'm one of those people that I'm probably going to talk to every person. You know, if I'm here, I'm making friends, even though I'm introverted. I'm like, hey, friendo, what's going on? You don't have to be me. You don't have to do that. You can be like, put your stuff down, get your notebook, get your what you need to do. You don't have to do the belly dancer, best friend, sisterhood, networking thing that we all tend. I hate sisterhood. I'm so sorry. We're not. I don't know your pronouns. We're not family. Like, I'm sorry. But making sure that you're doing that. The final thing is to like respect like where you're at, respect what you need to do to move that. So like practice your conflict resolution, practice what you need to do and go forward. And I'm so sorry. I have to do one thing with my Instagram. There we are. Okay, perfect. I apologize. I have a timer set to my Instagram for my own mental health, and it's about to get mad at me. So I have to do something very funny. That's okay. If it hangs up on us, it'll be fine though. Okay, perfect. It should be fine though. No worries. But so, and then protecting your own capacity. So what is that going to look like for you today? Do you need to, and I mean that for like every area. So some of us have like different abilities. So do you need to take a seat? Do you need to protect your knees? Like for me, I don't do great on like tons of spins on those like carpeting. So making sure that you're taking that break, taking that brain break, doing what you need to in that way.
Yes, I love talking about do what you need to feel in your own alignment. But again, I think all of this with the basis, that foundation you alluded to, and part of this conversation, like you can deeply have a few layers down disagreement or not get along with someone. But you could probably show always basic respect. A hi, if they say hi, you say hi back. It doesn't have to be mean. You know, they are, it's like if you had a disagreement with a family member, you don't just, you hope, right, that there's still enough safe layer of respect there. Unless if something harmful has happened, that would be a different case. And then it depends on the severity as well. But things to consider for sure. Those are, really loved how it started off with like, never thought of it that way. Make sure your cup is full. You're okay. Probably, yeah, makes you handle other things that are more difficult a lot easier. So that's great.
Yeah, I mean, we're all deserving of human respect.
This is the base. And sometimes that respect means allowing ourselves to not engage. And sometimes it does mean engaging, just saying, hey, like, that's all fine. That's normal.
Mm-hmm. So many different things, ways to handle it. Let's see. I think those are a lot of things. I would say, if I may add, it goes
I
along
would
with
love your opinion.
being comfortable with the uncomfortable. I think that in general, we're society here particularly, and what I see trending too, because I did not grow up with online, so for me it's always a little ugh. But being comfortable with the uncomfortable, I think, is overall the way you grow. It's not going to just happen. So if you want to expedite that, accelerate that, get yourself to a better place, you just got to do it and get yourself out there. I'm a very much like a doer. If
Yes.
um, I love how you mentioned that you've been to therapy. Therapy is a wonderful tool for getting a lot of ways to like figure out your own ish and how you handle this and how you perceive it and how to like reframe it if you need some, maybe have some gaps or you have some need some growth in other places. Wonderful. Books are great. If you're still in school or if there's something about like a debate club, the art of debate is fabulous and they don't teach it that much anymore. So if there's a way that you can listen to debates or be part of a fun debate with your spouse or like a best friend even, like you can go through these or even go through scenarios in your head of how you'll deal with X person that you do not get along with. If scenario A, B, and C will happen because you know you're going to see their asses everywhere.
I've never thought about, did you do debate?
No, I wish, but I come from a very hot-blooded Latin family, so let me tell you, I'm factors
Okay.
in this naturally. So that's why, like, I don't, I don't elevate to a point. I really do. I can get really passionate, but it never crosses a certain threshold because I'm just so used to disagreeing really respectfully, if that makes any sense at all, in
Yeah.
the environment I've grown up with. You talked about the boundaries. I think that could be a whole other conversation about boundary setting. That's the one that I did a lot of mistakes with in my 20s, and I mean a shit ton.
What did you do? Wait, no,
Girl,
call yourself out. No.
oh my gosh, yeah, like I didn't even set them. I just thought, oh, everyone's gonna respect and everyone's gonna talk about things, and if you tell them to be direct, they will. No, there's people that are like, oh, I don't do conflict. I'm like, oh, but conflict is everywhere. You must kind of, you can respectfully have conflict. You can respectfully disagree. But some people are like, nope, I don't do conflict, and they shut off and they don't talk about it. And then it turns into a lot of drama. So I had to set a lot of boundaries with people that say they don't like conflict. One of the things I learned through my own thing with therapy was putting myself in other people's shoes. That one was
Yeah.
like a game changer because you think you do it, but then you really get some more deeper levels of it. And it really helps a lot with conflict, like big time. It's a journey in and of itself.
Yeah, I think it's important to like consider another person's perspective, but I think it's also at the end of the day, you're never going to totally understand another person's lived experience. Like, we're never going to see how someone else maybe, I don't know how you were raised. I don't know how you chose to, I'm going to figure out a really bad thing. Okay, I can't really that. Never mind. But you're never going to be able to like experience that. So there's always going to be that like, I think you can always accept someone's like, okay, I understand how you said this, or maybe how maybe based on that. I think also sometimes learning about different generations. I remember talking to a dancer, and I was very, frankly, like put off by some of the things they said. They said some very odd sentences. Like I was like, oh, that's a very fascinating thing to say to another human being.
Mm,
Um, and I realized that some of those were kind of generational. They had been through some trauma that was somewhat generational.
yeah.
And so I was like, okay, some of this is because they had been through this and because they had chosen to maybe not ever address this and maybe not ever maybe manage through that kind of conversation. They, they're going to continue to repeat these kinds of phrases. And I'm going to be okay maybe not understanding this too.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point. Yeah. That's what you just said. Yep. That's what it goes. I we're getting some questions already. Oh my gosh, everyone, put in those questions. We're almost at this time. If there's kind of like your last words to sum this all up, you know, like the roundup of it all from your perspective about being yourself always and not having to people please and respectfully not getting along with all, what would it be? What are your last final words on it?
So I think at the end of the day, the right people for you are going to come. And here's my opinion, and this is, you know, like I'll put it in the sign. My opinion always is like I have kind of unapologetically run the spaces that I run with the beliefs that like the right people that for me are going to come. I'm going to run the things the way that I want to because I want to be able to fall asleep at night. When I have moved and done things to try to do the ways that the correct teacher or the correct producer does it, I'm kind of mad at myself at the end of it. I'm like, oh, this was not the way I wanted to do stuff. Because I practice the self-awareness skills to, you know, to be like, oh, I moved out of alignment. Like this kind of like frustrated me that I did this thing. And I'm starting to get those practices because I'm starting to connect with myself. So like my classes do not run like a lot of other dance classes. So and this is my example, and I'm not trying to be like, everyone come to Athena's belly dance classes, unless you're in Columbus, Ohio, and then please do. But my first weeks of belly dance classes, like, you know, I was really frustrated when I was starting to see dancers that were coming out of 2-3 years into dance, and they did not know who our famous dancers were. They did not know who Dina was. They did not know these things. They didn't know the regions. They didn't know the folk dances. They didn't know this stuff. And I was like, this is not good as dancers. Like, this is not, they don't know these regions. They don't know the people. And like, to me, there's no point to learning dance if we don't know people. Because people are the reason we dance, you know, like, and I'm not
The
trying to get
communal
but
art.
like, that's the point. Like, this is a cultural dance. If we don't know culture, why are we learning this? This is not just steps in a vacuum. And so, like, I was like, as a teacher, that's my responsibility. So why am I leading this? So my technique class, my beginners class, by week 3, they know who Dina is. They know who these dancers are. And like, people say that that is too high level for a technique class or a beginner's class, but to me, that's not it. That's just, to me, that a beginner should know their history. They should know our 4 dancers. They should know that this dance comes from Egypt. They should know the regions. They should know these dancers' names. They should know these, like, the people. And I can tell you, like, in my personal opinion, because I know my last class sold out. My technique class sold out last session. Your people will come for you if you are moving in your own integrity. Because I'm not just going to do like, this is an easy dance form that no, like, it's hard because people are worth the effort. Like, you, like, this is, and like, I bring Palestinian Debki teachers to come and teach their cultural dance. I bring people to do this because it is worth it. I give my money, like, of my teaching to go do that because that is what is important to me. And I'm not, and like, that's not me trying to be political. That's not me trying to be any which way because it is important. And like, that is me being like, not trying to be any other way. And the people that are like, I sold out. So I'm not like sell out, but like, I didn't sell out. So I sold out, you know? And I'm not, that was so shady. I'm so sorry.
I think it's cute.
Bad. Please call me out. Everyone say that's the cringiest thing you've ever heard.
I like it.
Like, but it's because I'm like, I don't want to continue to see this type of lack of education. Like, I don't need to see a dancer with 1,000 moves when they don't know who our famous dancers are. They don't know our folk dances. They don't know this. This is, to me, that's not an educated dancer, frankly. You can learn every type of arabesque, but like, if you don't know who Mahmoud Reda is, like, I'm sorry, you're not an advanced dancer, frankly. And like, that's me, like, maybe that's my hot topic for the day, but like, that's my opinion. And like, the right people have come for me. Or come for me, whatever. And so like, to me, and that's not me people pleasing, that's me attracting the right type of people. My troop are people who know that I'm going to tell them if this step isn't right. Like, my professional troop, they know if this isn't right, I will be like, this hip is not, I can tell your weight is not where I want it to be. Because this is where I've set the expectation and the level that this is supposed to be. And so like, that's kind of what, you know, like people know that like I'm gonna stand on like being like they know where my money's going, they know who I am, they know where I'm going to be. And so like when I did 2 years ago a fundraiser for Palestine and Lebanon, no one was shocked. No one would thought that that was a particularly out of character decision. They knew that because they know who I am. They knew I was already pro-Palestine. They already know these things, so it was not shocking, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Because, you know, that never was a shocker, you know? So that's my opinion. You know, and not trying to be like, don't sell out and you'll sell out, because you might. And if I lose all my business because of that, like I'm fine with that because I can go to bed.
Mm-hmm. Because we're yourself at the end of the day, your authentic self and all of
Yeah.
these things. Yeah. There's no better feeling than that. A
Yeah.
healthy, clear conscience.
Yeah. And when I do things that are out of line with that, like I went to a show and I was like, oh, I did that because I knew I had to like do that as a producer. And I was like, oh, I'm mad about this decision. And I felt it, you know?
Yeah, we've all been there.
You know, I learned it. Now, do you
Question.
see, I saw a message from Laura, I think. I'll read it out
Yes.
loud.
It's question time.
Yeah.
Okay. It says, dun dun dun. Are you able to handle difference in politics in order to maintain a progressional working relationship? By difference, I mean when it gets tense due to very big differences in values. What do you think?
Well, I think because people know exactly where I stand, they probably don't mention stuff to me. I'm be very open, honest, and transparent. Like, I'm in a very red state, and I just said I ran a huge Palestine fundraiser last year. So I don't think people tend to, because in my city, I'm a person who runs. There are two major producers, and I'm one of two. So I think people don't want to
Oh, okay.
mention anything to me, frankly. Maybe I run a fear-based campaign. So if you run the only one who runs two, and their one event is your Palestine fundraiser, but I don't know about you, Jennifer.
I would say this comes up for me. Now, I have to preface by saying my private life is very private, and I've always had a really old school policy of no sex, drug, or politics on my social. Because to me, social media, it's not my real life. You know what I mean? Like I live in the real world. Like this is cool, like what we're doing now, but it's not my life. If you can
Yeah,
know what I mean. So when I have all these talks all the time though in my real world,
yeah,
in my real people. I actually had a sit down with someone about this earlier this year that has very different, I think the same values, but a very different approach as to how things should be executed, let's say. And for them, social media was the creme de la creme, number one way to voice their concerns and want things done with politics. And I have a very different view, probably the opposite view. So I would say it's not easy, it's not fun, but I did a sit down with the person. I think it's important to get an understanding of why they think the way they do and put yourselves in their shoes and why do they think this way or think that you should do something their way. And with no goal of changing anyone's mind, but maybe if they're emotionally able to have a good debate, if not, just listen. And then from there, I'm kind of like you, I'm like, it's not a topic I'm going to talk about with them, because we're just not going to see eye to eye ever, never on anything either. If you do agree with something, you don't agree 100% completely the same on anything. But it's one of those topics that like, probably not best for us to have, but other than that, they're lovely. It's just, it could be harmful with this one person that I was having to have those discussions versus other topics it feels really safe. So I think you need to follow your gut instinct on that. I don't know the person, I don't know you, but what does your gut say? And maybe analyze what Athena said. Is it a personality? Is it an energy? Is it is it a harmful thing? And if it's harmful, probably move the space away with that topic. And if it's not so harmful, well, maybe entertain chatting with them about it more and getting a little deeper on size.
yeah. Like I think at the end of the day, like there's some parts of it that by the nature of who I am and how I live and how I express who I am, I'm always going to be just, like if I walk around with my spouse, my political leanings are going to be pretty evident, like frankly. And so that's always just going to be kind of what this looks like. So for me, I'm always just going to be a little bit more visual in just how I tend to look and breathe in this world. And so it's just, for me, I'm not going to be like the person that's having these these big conversations. However, it's very evident, like by the way that I act. Like my next fundraiser that I'm doing is going to be for Moms Against Poverty, Red Cross of Lebanon, and PCRF. Because I just feel like it's really important to give back to these regions. But like, if someone wants to have like a political debate with me, I'm unlikely to have that because it's just not where I'm going to be putting my energy forth at this point in time. I feel like where I'm going to be giving my energy is giving money, because that's where these regions super need it right now too.
I love it. See, different perspectives.
Yeah.
You do what's good for you, boo.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's see. Oh, I know this is loaded. Yeah, great question. Nuri, hello, hi, Keisha, belly flutters, how long can you hold? This is not a question related to this topic, so I will respectfully ignore it. I want to make sure I
was trying to figure out how to
your...
delete that, but I don't know if I have the authority. So
I don't even think I can delete it.
Well, that's a choice people aren't us make.
I'm sure I'm a part of the problem for being a bit loud on my stance and standing on my convictions, which can make things tense. Yes, most know where I stand. I'm with you. Thank you. Huh?
Well, I think that there's dancers, like I saw some dancer, I think on both sides of like the political divide, there are dancers who choose to make that part of their brand, and that's their personal choice. Yeah, people want attention, and that's not my area to give them attention. There's people that give the finger. I don't care. People don't have to like you to exist in this world. People sometimes just write stuff for attention.
Yeah, for sure. But again, you control you control a lot of what you allow in your space and where you put your energy. So I think even when you disagree, it takes a lot of energy. You have to be ready for that if you want to give it that, So kind of just feel, where does this fall in the priority? Where does this fall? It might be a really dear relationship. I don't know. Again, right? I'm like imagining all these different scenarios. If it were someone that's really close to you and you're like, man, it really hurts that we can't agree on this. That probably is really painful right now. Like, I don't know if that's even the case. It could just be like some random, but if it were, I have to keep thinking like, gosh, what is it in there? What are they thinking? Because if I really care about them, I want to know, and I want to try to get to some point where it's like, we can be cordial about it, or if we need to totally table it. Like, I have some friends, totally not political, but like, think of crazy, wild, like my uncles with sports. They're psycho about stuff. Like, it's next level, and I cannot have those discussions with them with love, because it's not going to lead to anything good. So like, decide what this is for you right now, what would make you feel okay.
And I mean, I'm not going to get into that conversation right now because our tax dollars are going to wild things right now, but and I also, like, as a community, we have a myriad, and we also have so many different generations that are coming in. Like I work for a rec center, so I get the different age ranges that are coming in too. So did you notice a certain age or era in life where you're able to recognize and stop people-pleasing behaviors, or a specific situation that changed a pattern for you, or were you always anti-people-pleasing? So I can say I think it's an era of therapy, because and here's what I'm going to go very, what's it called? Feminist, like hyper feminist. But I think for a lot of women, we have been socialized that this is the safest way for us to exist too. We have been socialized that if we can, it's called a fawn behavior, that if we fawn and we go to like being, whatever you say, those are things that have been the safest for us. Especially for many of us who have been socialized as women, this is the way that we can be safest. And so to go against that, it's often considered more of a masculine behavior or something else like that. It is safe. It is not necessarily always the safest for us. And so we have to consider sometimes Where are we working against that? So there are women who are in their 90s who have not necessarily worked against that. And there are times where you might make a decision that is maybe to change that behavior for a reason for safety too. Many of us have been conditioned to make decisions against that for certain reasons. So I don't want us to ever there are reasons why, and I think women of all different generations might choose to do this. So I don't want us to say there's a particular age, because we have been socialized for this, and there have been specific reasons, and I don't want us to act like these are necessarily always bad behaviors too. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if you have the same opinion or not, but I think we have to be very careful in sometimes to say this is an age thing, because there are women in their 90s who are going to do this, and people in their teens who have never had this problem, they have been free their entire life because they haven't had that socialization.
I don't know if it's when I read it, the question as far as age, I kind of just thought of it oh, well, yeah, as I'm growing up, because more things are coming across the life journey. You're like, whoa, okay, this is new. Oh, and this happens. Oh, and then this happened, when I was older, because it couldn't have possibly happened when I was younger, So I'm just thinking about it more of a timeline, chronological type of way, where there wasn't a specific age where it switched, but I just realized that I never thought I was a people pleaser, but I think I definitely was, more so in my younger, more innocent years, and definitely my hot-blooded years. And then with therapy and more experiences and more just falling down and eating shit, honestly, you just get up and you're like, you know what? No, I want to be better. I want to take this a different way. And it causes more joy, I think, mutually, or just even in myself. I know what I need to be aware of now. I know my boundaries. I don't think there was a specific age or anything. I think it was just having to fall on my butt so many times and learning.
And it's so, because, my experience was very interesting, because when I was in my 20s, I had much more rigid boundaries. You cannot speak to me this way. You cannot treat me this way. I will not talk to you.
Wow.
And as I hit a different time, I started to become a lot softer. And so that's why I'm a little bit and I had some maybe different experiences, but I was oh no, you can't talk to me that way. It's like this. And so that's why people have very different things. As I've aged, I've softened. And maybe there's different reasons. We all have different life experiences. But so for me, and I can't wait for crone. I think I'll be so powerful in crone. But so I'm very much, I can't wait for grays. It's going to be over. But I can't wait. I love aging. But so I think there was a period of time where it's my boundaries are impermeable. And as I've gotten older, I was this is fine. This is fine. I'm a little more wiggly. And so that's why I think I have a little bit more of a relax when I say we all have different experiences, because, you're saying, oh, I would let anyone go over me. And I was no, you cannot talk to me that way. It's so, and now I'm oh, were you having a bad day? Did you not eat? I'm allowing a little bit more patience. So that's why I sometimes have the opposite opinion, because
I like it. This is precisely what's beautiful about these conversations.
Yeah.
There's going to be different people that say, oh, I'm this person, or I'm more like this person, or oh my God, I'm here, yeah, I had I couldn't have shit for boundaries, so I've had to create them, because totally ran me over, and then what, growing up. So, that's so cool.
I remember how people used to have to write in their contracts, I will only wait 15 minutes or something.
Mm-hmm.
I would never wait 5 minutes, I'd be oh no, it's time to start. That would be it. And there'd be no waiting. Oh, I'm sorry, your party's late. It's not my problem your party's late. It's time for me to start. There'd be no conversation. Other dancers would be sitting there. Yeah, I'd be oh, it's not my problem your wedding's late. That's not, your poor planning's not my problem.
I love it.
So it's very different of an experience to hear other people be oh, I had to write that into my contract. So it's oh.
Mm-hmm.
Now
I totally have that in my contract.
Yeah. Because people were nicer.
I love it.
Yeah, just different people.
Let me see if there's anything. Okay. We are, thank you for everyone.
We are way over time because I'm a talker.
Way over time, but it's been lovely. I want to make sure you guys know where you can continue this conversation after this. Athena has different ways that you can reach to her and just say, watch her journey, keep in touch. So on Instagram, it's her handle here, which is Athena Shimmy. And then on Facebook, you can find her as well. I'll put the links too in this podcast for everyone to go through, but you can definitely find her there. And then Athena How on Facebook. And then on her website, athenashimmy.com, easy to remember. You can definitely continue on, follow her journey. I hope that you guys enjoyed getting to know a little bit of her perspective on this, her way of thinking. I think it's very, very mature, very wise, and it takes a lot of work. So I definitely just applaud, because I know it's not easy getting to the point of talking about these things and having lived through to get to the point to talk about these things in such a way. So thank you so much for your time, Athena. I'm so happy we did this.
Thanks for having me. This was so much fun.
Yes.